large polls all over the country at the African American Research Collaborative. We thought that she would do better, particularly with white women, than she wound up doing, and specifically because of abortion. And if we look at where abortion was on the ballot yesterday, it won pretty much everywhere but Florida, and that's because Florida has a requirement that that if you're voting on a ballot initiative, you have to at least get to 60 points. But places like Missouri, not only did folks vote for Trump and vote for Josh Hawley, one of the most right-wing members of the Senate, but they also voted to protect abortion rights, to add an amendment such that abortion would be legal. It was currently illegal in the state of Missouri. They made it legal. So people went in and voted for Trump, the person who ended abortion rights in the country, and then voted to give themselves abortion rights.
Make it make sense.
There's a lot we have to figure out on this craziness.
I think people
or maybe not. Right?
I think they're delusional.
Maybe not.
I think they're delusional. I really do. To me, there's no. Well, there's many other explanations for that. And we're helping each other process this. So let's go to Molly Bell from the city of Compton. She's one of our most original griots, most venerated members of the KBLA delegation, our callers. Molly Bell, good morning. Molly Bell, you there? You're on with Henry Fernandez.
Oh, reparations in memory of our ancestors. I had my mic on mute.
Okay.
And what is our guest's name again?
Henry Fernandez. He's the CEO of the African American Research Collaborative.
I wasn't calling to speak to a guest, but I could do that.
Just say what you were going to say. We're going to Mr. Fernandez is going to help us process this. He's an expert in polling. He can help us unpack what really happened. And so go ahead and say what you wanted to say, Molly Bell.
Okay. Asante Sana, thank you. First of all, we as a people, as a country, we should have never, ever let a criminal run for office. He was a devout criminal. He was a liar. He caused a rebellion. He refused to stop it. He gave up. He kept our private papers with him. He did so many things wrong, but we as a country said, we can't put our president in jail. We're not going to do that. And we didn't do that. And so for myself, I think that was us being good people where we should not have been. We should have been legal people. We should have done what was right. And to our guest, I've called in before, and I've told them that I believe that Kamala was going to win. However, I did say this, and you could go back and listen to one day when James Farr was on. I said that Trump, if he wins, is going to be assassinated because they already had those fake attempts on his life, such as when his ear, a big, huge bullet, went through his ear and killed somebody else. They had what happened in Mar-a-Lago, and they're going to assassinate him under the terms that it was done by a radical and that happened. And then, you know what's going to happen? What's going to happen is J.D. Vance will take over and do Project 2025 and make sure that it happens. Because Trump is senile, and he just doesn't know how to do. He did read the prompter last night, and I'm praying for all of us that we need to have a fair and just America. We need to know that right now it's just a 5 million vote difference. And Dick Gregory used to say, "Pray that the truth come out." I believe that it's going to work out in our favor. We had to have this, because we came here on the bottom of a ship. All right, I know I'm wrapping up and I'm going to end, Dominique. So I'm just saying to all
You
of
said a
you,
lot of things. I mean, I don't, whoa. We need a whole show to unpack that. You might have to call me back again later in the week. I don't know if about the assassination thing. That's quite a prediction. I don't see it, but trust and believe if it does happen, they'll be blaming Black Lives Matter and they'll be riding through our hoods and jailing us. So no matter who does it could be, Melania. Black people will get blamed for sure.
Thank you, Dominique, and to our guest, I close the way I always close. I'm a Joshuan. Joshua said, "Choose this day whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we choose to choose the Lord." That's how we choose. And so, prayer warriors out there, you know what you've got to do. You know what you've got to do. You've got to keep fasting. You've got to keep praying because the struggle continues. And always, to God be the glory. Thank you, Dominique, and thank you to our guest.
Thank you, Molly Bella. That was a whole lot. Henry, I don't know if you heard anything in there that you can tackle. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I do think that we have to be honest about the failure to hold Trump accountable, and certainly at the center of that is the Attorney General Merrick Garland, right? And his failure to hold Trump accountable for a coup d'état, an attempted coup d'état, for an insurrection. And we can look at what happened in Brazil. Basically, the same thing happened. There was an attack on their government office buildings in Brazil when right-wing president lost re-election. And the new government of Brazil moved quickly to prosecute everyone involved, barred the president who lost the election. The ex-president barred him from running again.
I mean, and that guy was like a Trump. Guy was like a Trump wannabe, right?
He was Brazil's version of Trump.
Yeah, Mr. Bolsonaro. Yeah,
that's right. And so we can see that the failure certainly by the Attorney General, but also by Republican-led Senate to hold Trump accountable is a part of the problem. But at the end of the day, the United States has a history of treating black women in this way, and did so again. And I think we have to. I think there will be a lot of blame coming for Vice President Harris, and we need to recognize that she was put in an almost impossible situation, did a remarkable job with very limited time, and came closer. Closer than I think any of us would have thought possible 20 years ago in terms of the direction of our country. She did not get blown out, right? I mean, she lost because of a crazy electoral college system where votes in California and New York and Texas, Florida don't matter. So where the majority of people live doesn't matter. And that system, we should remind ourselves, the electoral college was set up to facilitate slavery. So we have a long history that continues to haunt us. History isn't even the past.
Yeah, history is now. That's what my mama, the late, great Diane DiPrima, used to say.
Yeah.
One white woman that we could have counted on to overcome, but she's on the other side. We appreciate the conversation. A lot of people have questions and commentary, and I'm so glad that you're game to help us process this. We're talking with Henry Fernandez, CEO of the African American Research Collaborative, and you at 800-920-1580. We're here for you. This is a place where we're amplifying black and progressive voices around the clock. We are KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-550-9651.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at tra.com
or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code SNAP to get an extra 35 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code SNAP for a 35 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code SNAP for a 35 cents per gallon bonus.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Yeah, so we're unpacking yesterday's election, historic election, for so many reasons. We have confirmed that the Republicans have taken firm control of the Senate, that Donald Trump has won re-election to the White House, first convicted felon, adjudicated rapist to do so. And we are still, waiting to see what happens with the House of Representatives. With a Republican Senate, a Republican president, and a Republican Supreme Court. I don't know, what exactly the House of Representatives could do, but certainly it would be better if he didn't have a complete, authority. I don't know how much more complete it can get than having actual immunity. And I know Henry Fernandez is with us. I know that you also are a graduate of Yale Law School. How do you, this is a little off the polling thing, but, the immunity of the president is supposed to be limited to presidential actions, right, according to the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm laughing to keep from crying right now because that seems, under Donald Trump, picking his nose is presidential. So I don't see what, he wouldn't claim immunity for.
Well, I think you make a great point, and I think we need to acknowledge that the federal court system has, and particularly the Supreme Court, but also at the appellate level, that Trump really changed the makeup of the court, making it much, much more partisan and much less committed to precedent and kind of staying the course with big cases that have been decided in the past. And that's why we had the end of Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs decision. I think we have to worry about other significant issues, for instance, around policing and whether things like Miranda rights will remain protected, whether stop and frisk will come back in a very big way, and whether the courts will do anything to stop that going forward. that is Trump's America. That's where he wants to take us. I think one of the advantages with Trump is that he never hid who he was and where he wanted to go.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's true when we look at mass deportation and putting immigrants in camps. That's true with his comments about shithole countries, which basically just meant black countries and stopping black immigrants from coming to the U.S. And it's been true throughout this campaign on issue after issue that he's been clear what he wants to do, that he wants to imprison his opponents, and I think we should take him at his word.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm getting DMs and questions about some local races, and most of them are still too close to call, still being counted, and will continue to be counted here in Los Angeles for quite some time. A lot of people wondering about the 35th senatorial district here, progressive versus a more moderate Democrat. Too early to call that. Chambers versus Laura Richardson, Michelle Chambers. It's like there's a slight lead for Richardson, but nowhere near enough votes have been counted to call that. Let's go to Alexis calling us from the Antelope Valley. Good morning, Alexis. You're on with Henry Fernandez and Dominique DiPrima on KBLA.
Hi, good morning, and I hope you all are doing well. My concern is we are moving into troubling times that we knew, and we've seen the Republican interference with laws, with voting. This is honestly, I think, the most intrusive interference that I've seen personally, where I know in Georgia, in Cobb County, they had ruled that they were no longer allowing the extension for mail-in ballots of up to, I think, November 8th. They closed it, and it was just last week or this week that they made that determination. So I'm wondering how lawful, how legal is it for this continued interference, and what type of aggressive means can Democrats really work towards or provide or do in order to combat the aggressiveness that we've seen from Republicans and conservatives?
Well, I mean, I think that you're right. There was some aggressive, rejecting of ballots, the setting up of these election boards to try to reject results, the various ways that they disqualified votes that had already been cast. But unlike Donald Trump in 2020, I don't believe any of those would have probably been enough to change the outcome of this election. What the question for me is, what does it mean for future elections? Because we know all of these systems, from gerrymandering to local election boards, are going to be codified under a Trump presidency. You want to weigh in on her concerns, Henry Fernandez?
Yeah, I think those concerns are legitimate, and I would agree, Dominic, with your point about, I think ultimately this has a lot to do with Americans. And yesterday, I think what's pretty clear is that people of color, especially African Americans, voted in one direction, and white voters voted in a different direction. And I don't think that this was at the margins. This was a serious attack on what I think most of us think of as the America that we want to live in, and that we choose to live in. So I think, though, if we look to our history, we can really acknowledge that this is not new to us. We have had significant threats emanating from the presidency many, many times, whether that was Woodrow Wilson stripping civil service rights and kicking all the black people out of the federal government as employees, whether that was the end of Reconstruction under Johnson and later presidents, whether that was Reagan starting off his campaign just a mile away from where one African American and two Jewish Americans were buried in an earthen dam who were civil rights, who were tortured and killed and buried in an earthen dam who were civil rights, young civil rights activists. We have been through this struggle before. In some ways, we may be best prepared to lead this nation out of its dark time because we were the ones who knew this day might come. I don't think any of us assumed Harris would win. We were hopeful, and we will have to once again, I think, save this country.
Yeah, and I don't expect it to be easy, but I don't expect it to be. I don't expect a smooth 4 years. And to Molly Bell's point, she's thinking that Trump has to be assassinated or something in order for Project 2025 to be enacted. I believe they already started that program before the election, and it will be in full force. I don't know. I appreciate the historical context, Henry Fernandez. And I've said this, our ancestors never gave up. How dare we even think about it?
That's right.
And they were enslaved and they didn't give up. I can't give up if I want to. My great grandma Adelphia was enslaved and she didn't give up. So why would I? That we don't have that luxury. But I do think it is. I can't help but giving white folks the side eye. I'm sorry. I believe in alliances and coalitions. And like I started out the show, one of my beloved relatives said in 2016, when Trump won, no new white friends. Well, in 2024, I'm giving my old white friends the side eye. I'm sorry. What does ally mean? And I think this idea that the white woman was going to lie to her husband and then go vote for Kamala Harris when really she lied to her black friend and voted with her husband. And there's going to have to be some kind of reckoning for that. Was it a sign when Taylor Swift decided to go to the game instead of showing up at the Harris rally? Y'all got some splaining to do. 800-920-1580. It is KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Our election coverage continues with California overwhelmingly approving a measure that would increase the penalties for crimes like shoplifting and drug-related offenses. Proposition 36 has more than 70% support with nearly 9 million votes counted. Most of the U.S. House members in Metro Detroit, Michigan are heading back to Washington, D.C. for another 2-year term. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, Rashida Tlaib, Lisa McClain, and Haley Stevens won their races, so did Congressman Sri Thanedar. Arizona voters have approved an amendment that makes abortion rights part of the state's constitution. Proposition 139 was passed on Tuesday and will replace Arizona's current law, which bans abortions after the 15th week of pregnancy. And switching gears, Kroger has settled with 30 states that sued over the company's involvement in the opioid crisis. As a result, the company will pay nearly $1.4 billion to the states. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Lowe's knows you want to get more value for the holiday. That's why, as a My Lowe's Rewards member, you get new member deals every week on everyday essentials, tools, and more. Program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for full details, subject to change.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Paul George is back in town. The former Clippers star will be in the lineup tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Clippers and Sixers are meeting up tonight at the Intuit Dome. George signed with the Sixers as a free agent in the summer after playing 5 years with the Clippers. The Clippers won't have to worry about Sixers center Joel Embiid. The NBA suspended Embiid for 3 games for shoving a columnist Saturday in the Sixers locker room. Embiid was upset with Marcus Hayes of the Philadelphia Inquirer for a column he wrote about Embiid. The suspension will cost Embiid $1.63 million. The Lakers are at Memphis tonight, final game of a 5-game road trip. The Lakers are 1-3 on the trip. Dodger star Shohei Ohtani underwent surgery Tuesday to repair a torn labrum muscle in his left shoulder. Ohtani hurt his shoulder sliding into second base in Game 2 of the World Series. The Dodgers said Ohtani will be ready for spring training. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/eMedia. That's lapl.org/eMedia.
Black Women for Wellness and Stand LA are standing up against harmful oil drilling in South Los Angeles. Our Bad Neighbors campaign exposes the serious health risks of drilling in our neighborhoods. You've seen the billboards, posters, and coffee sleeves around South LA. Now join the movement to protect our health, our families, and our future. Visit bwwla.org/no-drilling to learn more and get involved. That's bwwla.org/no-drilling.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
We're talking with Henry Fernandez, the CEO of African American Research Collaborative, and you at 800-920-1580. There was a lot of conversation around polling throughout this short but seemingly endless presidential campaign. And the polling saying, you know, oh, this is such a close race. This is such a tight race. Before News, Traffic, and Sports, you said that you didn't think this race was won around the margins. Explain what you mean by that and what that says about our polling leading up to this decision.
So that's a great question. Polling is a function of two things, right? It's a function of how people respond to the questions we ask. So we, as pollsters, ask, are you going to vote for Harris or are you going to vote for Trump? It's also a reflection of who we think is going to show up to vote. And because in a poll, what we're trying to use a combination of math and questions to really represent, have a relatively small number of people. In our case, 9,000 people in our large election poll represent every voter in the country, and we're usually pretty good at that. But ourselves, other major pollsters like the New York Times, Marist, College Polling, Ipsos, were probably off by 4 to 5 points, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it has a big effect across when you think about that nationwide in terms of total number of people voting. And what I mean when I say at the margins is that I think we got wrong who was going to turn out to vote and in what numbers. So I think we got a little bit wrong on the vote choice, but we also seem to have made some mistakes in terms of who was actually going to go out and vote. And I think that Trump voters really got out. Harris voters got out too, but probably not at the level that we thought. And then, as you mentioned, it looks like particularly white women did not support Harris at the level that many of us thought that they would. And that really affected polling as well, not just in what they told the pollsters, but also in the mix of people that we were trying to represent in the polls.
Was there a hidden Trump vote, do you think, or did pollsters miss it?
You know, I think a little bit of both. I think there were some people who don't want to admit that they were supporting Trump. I think that's especially true for some women, particularly white women, but also for voters of color, including African Americans in our community, right? That it's still the case that 8 out of 10 black folks really don't like Trump. So maybe you don't speak up and say, well, I like Trump, right? And so I think many of us are around people all day in the African American community where we're not hearing from Trump supporters, even if they're right next to us. But we should recognize that the overwhelming majority of black people, whether black women or black men, voted for Harris, and a very strong majority of white people voted for Trump.
Yeah, I've shared on this show, Henry Fernandez, that I had a really, really big dust up last week with one of my close relatives I'm African American and Italian American. So one of the white side of my family revealed to me that he was voting for Trump, and nothing I said could get through. It was like talking to somebody in a cult. And for me, that's a betrayal that goes beyond politics. This is not just a politician to me. We're talking about our system of government. We're talking about the safety of women in the healthcare system and the safety of black people in these streets. I mean, when you look at, the rise in hate crimes under Trump and et cetera, it was more than an election to me. So, that's I think that's one thing that maybe a lot of white voters don't know, or maybe they simply don't care. But I think it's going to have some profound social impact going forward.
It's a great point. Like you, I have white friends, and my family is also biracial. But unfortunately, what that meant, given my age, was that my mother's family's from Arkansas, and so we were disowned when we were born by that part of the family. So don't have any kind of strong connection there. So don't have to kind of own that barbecue moment that you're describing. What I would say, I think, is that Thanksgiving dinner at your house might be complicated. What I do think is that your point about betrayal, and I think for many white people who would think that they have black friends, and I recognize that that's a loaded expression. that they don't understand how terrifying this is for their black friends, how terrifying this is for immigrants, whether those immigrants are from Haiti. And I think what he had to say about Haitian immigrants should have been disqualifying for not just for president, but for ever being someone that you even talk to again. Instead, we have a president who went around talking about black immigrants eating cats. This is sick, and I do think that there have to be a very different set of conversations. But we also need to recognize who are our friends and allies and hold them close, whatever their skin color.
Okay, we got a couple questions in the chat here, which are interesting. Paul Lee says Ann Seltzer was way off with her polling. I think when many of us saw the Iowa poll that showed Kamala Harris winning, it gave us some hope coming from a reputable pollster. Trump ultimately won Iowa. Your thoughts on that?
So Ann Seltzer is a good pollster who's had a good track record of being right, and being right even when she was going against the grain, which her poll clearly did. I have to say I was struck by the poll because nothing I was seeing in our polling made me think that Trump was going to be in trouble in Iowa, and in fact, in the end, he wasn't. But this also goes to the fact that built into every poll is a risk that about 5% of the time we get it really badly wrong. For most of us this time, we're in what's called kind of the margin of error, right? Which is, maybe we're off by a few points in one direction or the other. And for both candidates, we might be off by 3 points for Harris and another 3 to 4 points for Trump. And so now we've got 7 points of error. But every now and then you get a poll, literally about 5% of the time, where you're really off. And I think for her, this was that one time. And unfortunately, it was that one time that really, really mattered. But I think for most of us, we were really struck by that poll. And, because she's been right in the past, even when she was going in a very different direction, she was one of the first pollsters to say that Trump was doing quite well against Hillary and then against Biden. I think she gets a pass because she's been right when others have been wrong in the past. And you have to kind of respect her work historically. So I think many of us thought that might mean that white women in the Midwest, and older white women in particular, were going to be more supportive of Harris than it looks like they really were. I will say we still have to wait. It's going to take us a couple of weeks to really look at data at the precinct level, at the county level, to see when we look at majority black counties, majority white counties, majority Latino counties, how did those move compared to 4 years ago, 8 years ago? That will help us really understand what happened. We can't be exactly sure yet.
We're talking with Henry Fernandez, the CEO of the African American Research Collaborative. You are invited to call in 800-920-1580. We are expecting to hear from Congresswoman Maxine Waters next hour, and we've got plenty of time to talk to you. That's what we're here for. This is the place where we're elevating black and progressive voices around the clock, win, lose, or revolution. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
This is 60-second Chevy Holiday Red Tag Radio, produced for Carol H. Williams by Radio Bob Resort on October 31st, 2024. Spot title Every Adventure, 60. ISKI code GC SV 0021000.
Whether you're going over the river and through the woods in the capable Silverado 1500, getting the choir to church on time in the 3-row Traverse,
Thank you!
or driving cross town to deliver your famous Cajun-spiced holiday turkey in the Equinox EV, America's most affordable EV with a 315-plus mile range. Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Find your red tag. Get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select popular Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Silverado, Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $2,860 for over $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 22.2%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/2/24.
Thank you!
November is Youth Hope Month, shining a light on young people facing homelessness. Yearly 4.2 million experience homelessness in the U.S. Sanctuary of Hope is here to help. Join us November 4th through the 9th for education on Instagram and come out to our in-person event November 11th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Aura Cafe in Lamert Park. We will have conversations on host homes. Learn how to turn your spare room into a safe haven for a young adult in transition. Receive training and financial support. Visit thesoh.org. That's thesoh.org. Let's bring hope to our youth this November. With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA vs. Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Broadcasting live from Lamert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Henry Fernandez, CEO of African American Research Collaborative. You've had a lot of different jobs and roles. You've been in, everything from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal, but also founding executive director of LEAP, which is a nationally recognized child development program which serves low-income young people, mostly public housing residents in Connecticut. And I bring that up, Mr. Fernandez, because, of course, one of the things that is making my heart hurt this morning with the Trump victory is my hopes for a revival of the child tax credit, which took 4 million American children out of hunger and poverty, and this idea of the dismantling of the Department of Education, which not only was part of Project 2025, but Fox News saw Trump actually bragging about it live on the mic. So talk to me about these concerns that I have, as a mom and a person that just loves kids.
Great question. And I do think that we need to think about how we talk about the next 4 years and the election of Trump and the defeat of Harris with children of color, with young people. My son is actually a college student, and he and his friends were fretting quite a bit last night about what they were seeing and what they thought the potential of America was and is. So I think we need to talk about them. We need to help them process it. We shouldn't assume that children are immune to what they see from their parents and from the other adults around them. And obviously they have access to the Internet and TV news, and so they are hearing and seeing things, behavior from Trump that we would never accept from them, denigrating other people, simulating a sex act on television, and in a rally. This is terrifying, I think, for a lot of young people, and so we need to recognize that. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is that we need to explain to them our history as a people, that we have organized and we have overcome, and we have done that decade over decade and century over century. And when we think of it that way, we also know that young people have emerged generation after generation to lead valiant efforts to make America better. And that is often started, whether with SNCC or abolition, with the women's rights movement, with young people of color, young African Americans leading the way. And so we also need to give our young people the skills to be organizers, to be leaders, to understand what protest looks like, and how to go from protest to advocacy to changing the law to electing people in our fragile democracy. That we can't just go to the streets. We also need to take control of the levers of change. And those include what happens in Congress, what happens in our state legislatures, in our city councils, our boards of education. And then finally, I would say that we need to understand that we will be, through the end of affirmative action, through attacks on DEI, we will be pushed out of many places. And when we were pushed out of those places historically, that's when we created our own fraternities and sororities, when we created our own companies, our own churches, and our own places of worship. It's how we began to rely on each other. And this is an opportunity for young people to also develop that entrepreneurial gene, and but demand that they should be able to be in what have historically been called white places, but also create places of our own that are excellent. And if we built black colleges, we can certainly build a response to Trump.
A couple questions I want to get to before we lose you at the top of the hour. What is the overall turnout looking like at this point? For the general population, not just for black folks.
Yeah. So as I said, it'll take us a little while to get all of those numbers, but it looks like Harris had a bit of a bounce in terms of her supporters. So we actually kind of what we think of as base Democratic groups turned out well. It simply looks like base Republican groups turned out even better, and did so in the places that they had to do so. And I don't think there's any question that Harris ran a very strong field campaign, did the work to get out her vote, and Trump didn't do as good a job at actually running that. So I think there'll be a lot of talk over the coming weeks about whether there would have been a stronger candidate than Harris. I don't think another Democratic candidate would have raised more money or would have put more effort into knocking on doors and telephone calls to get out the vote. I simply think America reacted strongly, particularly around the economy, and blamed Harris and Biden for the cost of groceries and the cost of housing in particular, those two items in particular, as the price of gas started to drop. That with that accountability, it became very, very hard for her to overcome. But we should acknowledge that she moved the needle significantly from where Biden was during the summer, but not far enough to overcome in a short amount of time that gap with regard to the economy, and particularly the cost of housing, the cost of food, the cost of living.
I don't know if you can get these two in 2 minutes. Ken Season, when we created our own, it was successful, and it was successful. They destroyed it or stole it. Tell the whole truth. And then I'm wondering if, we saw a Bradley effect, that where white voters, you kind of touched on this, but that we, sensitive to that here in California, where white voters said they were going to vote for Tom Bradley for governor, but he lost.
Yeah, I mean, look, those are two real things. We have to know going in that when we build our own institutions, we have to build them to survive attack from the outside. There is no question. I'm sure we could do an entire show on what that looks like. But we should not interpret this election as evidence of anything other than when we send our best, they will come for us. That is what happened here, right?
Yeah.
Harris is an amazing candidate with an amazing history and track record. And I'm sorry, the second question was?
Bradley effect. Where
I think
voters say one thing and do another and seem to be motivated by race.
I think there's no question that that the combination of race and gender here, right, that that had an effect, a negative effect on Harris. What I don't think we saw was that it particularly hurt her with African American voters, but I do think that the idea of a black woman or an Asian woman in this case being at the top of the ticket did not make some core important constituencies as comfortable as they would have been with a man. And I think race still plays a big role, but I think what we've seen now twice with two very competent women at the top of the ticket is that gender plays a significant role in how people vote as well.
Henry Fernandez, CEO of the African American Research Collaborative. Tell us how to track you. We want to follow you on Twitter, or, well, maybe not Twitter, but anyway.
Well, you can definitely check us out on our website, which is africanamericanresearch.us. And from there, you can find our social media as well.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Wonderful to be here. Always good to talk to you. And we have work to do, but we've been in the fight before, and we'll be in it again.
Absolutely. News, traffic, and sports. We're taking your phone calls. Then the bottom of the hour, Congresswoman Maxine Waters joins us. All straight ahead on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Our election coverage continues with California overwhelmingly approving a measure that would increase the penalties for crimes. Has more than 70% support with nearly 9 million votes counted. Most of the U.S. House members in Metro Detroit, Michigan are heading back to Washington, D.C. for another 2-year term. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, Rashida Tlaib, Lisa McClain,